Hi, welcome to the Perception Podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Casey Zellers, and today we are hopefully going to change your perception on things that you thought you already knew. How are you, Mom?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
2018, you won Detective of the Year.
He was like yelling at me, and I said something to him, and when I said it, I went like this, and then he stopped. So I struggled with my spirituality, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because I couldn't understand why that would be allowed to happen. So the boy turns his head, and I'm thinking, that's my kid.
You are not only advocating for these children, but you're also advocating for God in those moments.
So you try to like flatline and not show emotion, because if I showed emotion, I didn't want them thinking, oh, sure, she's a female, now she's crying, now she can't do the job.
How would you hope to change people's perceptions of police officers? Hi, welcome to the Perception Podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Casey Zellers, and today we are hopefully going to change your perception on things that you thought you already knew. And today's guest, I don't know how or why she agreed to do this, but today's guest is a very special guest. It is none other than my mother, Nancy. How are you, Mom?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
You look really relaxed right now. So happy to be here.
I'm good.
So, you were a police officer in Carmel, Indiana for 35 years. How did you become a cop?
Well, it wasn't something that I had always wanted to be. It was kind of a fluke, actually.
Oh,
It's a fluke. So I was dating someone. I was living in Bloomington. I was dating someone. I was a few years older. He was just finishing up in college, and he lived up in Carmel. And so when we were dating, we'd drive back and forth. And at one point, it just got to be a lot of driving back and forth. So I moved to Carmel, had to find a job. And his dad told me the police department was hiring, and I thought, I'll try it.
so what did you want to be? Since you were going to one of the greatest colleges in the nation, go IU, what were you studying originally then?
Law.
Law. Okay, so it wasn't too far off.
Not too far off. I was going to be a lawyer.
Okay.
That was the plan.
That was the plan. Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't you also study marine biology at one point too?
No, I didn't study it. It was something I thought about when I was in junior high. I used to watch these specials on TV, The Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau, and I thought that was really, really cool, and I'd like to be a marine biologist. And then I found out how much math is involved.
And we all know you love math.
Yeah, so I was like, yeah, it's not a good fit. Not a good fit for Nance.
So so that's why you've always really kind of like enjoyed nature and the water a lot, is just because of those. Okay. Awesome. So walk me through like your days in the academy and ultimately like becoming a police officer and what that was like.
Okay. Well, at the time, it was 12 weeks at the academy. So we lived down in Plainfield, where the academy is, Monday through Friday. We went home on the weekends. So we were there.
Home for you was still in Carmel at that time?
It was
Or?
Carmel.
Okay.
So, yeah, the police department sent us there. So I was already hired. And so for 12 weeks, it was a little bit like basic training for the military. Not a lot, but I could see where it was like modeled after that. So there was like a lot of, drill sergeants in our face and yelling and
Yes, drill sergeant.
yes.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that. There was a lot of, jump down and give me 50 if you screwed up. And
Were you able to keep up physically with everything? Okay. What was the worst ass chewing you got, I would say?
I laughed at an instructor.
Okay. What happened there?
They were having us do this stupid thing where you take a baseball bat and you put your head on it, and while you're got your head on it, you're going around in a circle.
Yeah, you're spinning around.
To make you dizzy. And so people were running and falling, and I was laughing, and it was my turn again, and I was putting my head, and then the drill sergeant came over and started yelling at me. He said, "You think this is funny?" I said, "Yes." So I'm going around, and he's like, "It's not funny." I said, "But it is. I'm gonna fall down." So yeah, I had to do push-ups because I laughed.
Do you remember how many you were told to do?
20.
20?
Yeah,
Okay. Did you do them straight or did you have to pause?
I did them.
Oh, you did them straight?
I
Okay.
did them.
All right. So, okay, so you went through 12 weeks and then uh, were you hired to Carmel right away
I was
or
already hired.
oh, you were already hired?
Hmm.
So you get hired and then you go through the academy.
Hmm.
Okay.
They paid for it.
Okay. So then what after the academy, what came up next?
It's like your basic OJT or on-the-job training. So department policies, learning each shift. At the time I was hired, there were 3 different shifts. There was like 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., and 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Okay.
So I had to do my time in all 3 of those for a few months before I was cut loose.
Okay. So you were riding around with somebody then.
Hmm.
Okay.
For about 3 months.
About 3 months. Okay. And what did you, I guess, kind of learn about yourself in those 3 months?
I had a lot to learn. It's like, this is a lot different than what I'm used to. So, yeah, I had a lot to learn. I had to learn patience.
Mm-hmm.
Patience, not my skill set. I know the Bible says fruits of the Spirit, blah, blah, blah. Patience is like, not so much.
When God was making you, he was pouring in all the different ingredients, but he knocked over patience and was like, well, can't clean that up.
So I learned how to be patient.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a struggle.
In what ways did you learn to be patient?
Because I grew up on the East Coast, so everything's like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
So it's like
it's that New York
the
mentality.
New York mentality. So
Yeah.
I had to rein myself in where I wanted to keep going because I'm task oriented, want to get tasks done. So I'm done with A, all right, we're done. Let's do B, all right, we're done. C, so keep going. It's like rein in the energy,
Mm-hmm.
calm down, take in the big picture, so to speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had to learn to just rein myself in and not be in a rush.
Was there like a particular or specific experience that just kind of like the light bulb came on for you, or was it just kind of like an overtime thing where it was like, okay, I need to discipline myself more and more as time is going on here?
Well, a little bit of that and a little bit of my field training officer saying, Nancy, calm,
Mm.
calm.
Yeah.
Just pull back. Let's think about what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to charge in there like, the light brigade. We're just going to calm.
Yeah.
So I had to learn
You had to learn patience
patience,
that
calm.
almost immediately.
It'll still be there, Nancy, when we get there.
Yeah.
You don't have to go 100 miles an hour. It's okay.
Yeah.
We'll get there. We'll take care of whatever it is.
So through learning patience with your job, did you see that affecting you, I guess also in your personal life as well, like putting that those experiences and what you learned through patience on the job into your personal life as well? Or not so much?
Um, Once I started to realize that I didn't have to rush from one thing to the other and I could like breathe in between,
Yeah.
um, it, it went into my private life too.
Okay.
Where it's like, it's all right, just relax,
Yeah.
relax. It's
So it kind of
okay.
helped you kind of stop and actually like once you got a task done, you were able to actually like take a moment to actually enjoy having that task done before you moved into the next
Right.
task. Okay.
So it wasn't just me going boom, 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 let's knock them all out.
Mm-hmm. So what was, I guess, what are some fascinating, I guess, experiences that you had as a rookie cop?
Fascinating.
Yeah. From, I guess, like funny or things that just kind of like really kind of changed, I guess, your own perception of being a cop while you were working that job.
We tease each other a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something to get used to. So I was
Camaraderie type?
a little bit, seeing if you have thick skin.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was a female hired before me. She didn't do well. So I was the first one after a couple years. So I knew they'd already had this mindset of what women in law enforcement were like. And I knew that. And I wanted to be able to let them know that I was different than she was. She was the kind that if they went into a bar fight and they got everybody calmed down, she'd walk in being like, and get everybody all fired up again and get ready to fight when the other officers had everything all calm down, because we're supposed to use our words, right? So talk to people.
Be dominant to control the situation. Yeah.
We don't have to be dominant. You just have to just talk to people.
Mm.
Lower your voice. If you lower your voice, generally speaking, other people lower their voices.
Right.
So if you speak quietly, people stop shouting because they need to hear you. So it's just kind of naturally. And she went in all fired up. So I knew I had that, I don't know, that to overcome.
Yeah, because you got that from being raised in New York too, I think.
Well, not so much that, more the impatience and all of that good stuff. But no, I'm not the kind who's going to walk in and get everybody all fired up. If I walk in and I say everything's calmed down, I'm out.
No,
Go
yeah.
to the next one. But no, she would do that. And so they had a bad taste in their mouth, and I knew that. So going in, I needed to address that and let them know that I was not her. So, and there were officers that made it fairly clear that they didn't think women belonged in law enforcement. So I had that bias to deal with.
Yeah.
So you'd come on a bad scene or something bad would happen. So you try to like flatline and not show emotion, because if I showed emotion, I didn't want them thinking, oh, sure, she's a female. Now she's crying. Now she can't do the job. So I learned how to be stoic and not show emotion so that they would, I don't know, respect me.
Would you say that mattered to you at a time early on in your career? Did that matter to you more than, like, I guess what I'm saying is like, did you feel that was the respect of your peers more important to you than what you were able to do for the community? Or were you trying to find a balance in there a little bit?
I mean, it's a balance. So, I mean, you want to have the respect of your peers, because if you're at a call and it goes bad, you
Yeah.
want them to respond, and they're going to respond.
Right, they want to know that they can depend on you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to know that I can depend on them. They want to know if they can depend on me. So you got to work out that, coexistence, that work balance with your peers, and go out into the community and provide services they need.
And was there, I guess, any one particular experience in general that I guess kind of comes to mind for you?
That does what? What am I highlighting?
Where you felt like whenever you did this, like you finally had earned the respect of your peers?
Yeah, they don't tease you if they don't like you.
True.
And so that's how I found out. So I'm not very tall. And I was at a traffic accident that involved a semi. And the semi driver was probably, I don't know, 6'2", 6'3". And so we were standing on the side of the highway, and he was at fault. He'd run into another car, and so he was like yelling at me. And I said something to him, and when I said it, I went like this, and then he stopped. And I wasn't like rude. I don't swear and stuff at people, but I was like, you need to mind your manners. We're here trying to work this out. And I don't think he expected anybody to.
The assertiveness in your voice.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and at the time, our department required, they were ridiculous. They looked like cowboy hats. They were awful. So I was wearing this cowboy hat, on full gear. And later when I got to the department, because somebody else had stopped to make sure that, everything was okay, and I had it under control. And so when I got back to the department later in the evening, there was a cowboy hat sitting on a pair of shoes. And I was like, what is that? And he's like, that's what you look like, Nancy. talking to this, 6'2" guys, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
they're giving me a hard time, so
Yeah.
they must like me,
Yeah.
so it's okay.
Yeah. So did you find it very difficult then for not necessarily your peers, but for say you pull somebody over, say you're working a domestic case or just anything really,
Mhm.
for somebody to look at you and take you seriously whenever you're 5 foot nothing, 100 and nothing, and just like, well, she's not going to tell me what to do. Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's plenty of that. Like I said, I was the first female that they'd had in a long time. So when I would show up at people's houses, they were not expecting me to show up. So there had been more than one occasion when they thought, well, we think we need to have a man here. And it's like, I'm who you've got. So let's just try to work through this. So there's more than one occasion where people were like, oh, okay, it's a woman. It's like, yes, I'm trained. We're good.
We're good. Yeah.
We're good. If I need something, don't worry. I'll be calling. So, yeah. So that took a little for the community to get used to.
So let's transition from you being a rookie cop to, because you moved into being a detective. What did that transfer, I guess, kind of really look like for you, and what was, I don't know, what was on your heart really to kind of like, that's the transfer that you wanted to move? Because there's all kinds of different departments in a police department itself. So I guess what spoke to you about being a detective?
Some childhood experiences that I had created a desire in me to be an advocate for children. Because, like I said, some childhood experience that I had, I didn't have anybody advocating for me. So that didn't happen in my family. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to advocate for children. So when a detective position came open, I thought, great, here's an opportunity. Now I can be an advocate for children who didn't have that when they were younger. So I felt like that was my purpose. That was where I was being led. So that role is a lot different. I mean, in a uniform, you're expected to have a lot of self-initiated activity, so all the traffic that you do, traffic stops, checking buildings, all that, whatnot. So it's self-initiated. They want to see that. This is more reactive. So stuff happened, a report comes in, and now, so a lot of it wasn't proactive. It was like reactive. So all these reports are coming in. Now I have to go and talk to these children, try to arrest the bad guys. And there was some satisfaction putting bad guys in jail who had, perpetrated crimes against children. So that was kind of my thing for 25 years.
25. Wow. So of your 35 years as a cop, you spent the first 10 as a road officer?
6.
6. Okay. And then you made that transition into becoming a detective. And was it just working with children, or was there other stuff as a detective that you were called to do? I know that Carmel is, generally speaking, a safe town, so there isn't a whole lot of like death and murder, say like in like major cities like Indianapolis or Chicago, Miami, whatever. So, but was that just your main goal then, or was there other stuff mixed in there?
Well, that was my specialty. That's what I received the bulk of my specialized training in. But if I was on call, and we were on call, I don't know, every 6 weeks. So every 6 weeks, if there was a burglary or any other call, I would go to it and I would have to investigate it. But the bulk of my stuff was child abuse, physical, sexual child abuse, sexual assaults, like a rape, kidnapping, that kind of stuff. Anything against a person, so like a homicide, that would be something I would be involved in.
Did that stuff ever affect you spiritually? Like, did it make you question? I don't want to say the existence of God, but did it ever just kind of maybe make you question God's love for humanity, or or anything like that? Or
All the above.
really?
So when I first started in police work, I wasn't necessarily a spiritual person.
Hmm.
I was pretty much agnostic for a while.
You had that belief that there's
There's
a
something
there's
out
a
there.
force, yeah.
Right, there's something, but I don't know what it is. I won't put a name on it.
Hmm.
And so after seeing, child deaths or child molests or, any kind of physical abuse, I would question, why would a loving God allow this kind of stuff to happen?
Hmm.
And so it was a struggle and didn't know. So I struggled with my spirituality, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because I
Yeah.
couldn't understand why that would be allowed to happen. I understand we all have free will,
Hmm.
so God doesn't wish bad things for it to happen to us.
Right.
They happen to us because of somebody else's free will. And he can't stop somebody else's free will because we're not puppets.
Right.
So none of us are puppets. We all have free will. We should be treating each other with respect and kindness, and some people don't do that. So
Yeah.
free will. So that is where I would struggle. But I kept thinking, well, but this is my calling. And now hopefully this child is on a path to recovery because somebody advocated.
Hmm.
Somebody. There are other people in my unit. I wasn't the only one doing this. So, you work as a team, you get it done, you work with child services, you work with a prosecutor, and it's like, so we're a team of people. So this team hopefully has put this child on some kind of road to recovery and
Yeah.
can
And
lead a better life now.
so that brought you, I guess, from questioning to satisfaction because you were able to, at some point, understand that you are not only advocating for these children, but you're also advocating for God in those moments.
Yeah, so it's, like a purpose-driven life. Why are we here on earth?
Hmm.
Right? So I was thinking, why am I here? So being involved in police work is like, well, this is why I'm here. Maybe it was a fluke because I was dating someone and I wanted to move closer. I mean, don't have the boyfriend anymore,
Yeah.
but so it was a fluke, but was it really?
Yeah.
Because somebody told me that this was open because he thought it was the boyfriend's dad thought I would be good at it. And I was like, okay, try it.
Yeah.
So it may have been a fluke, but it turned out to be, yes, this is. And once I was doing it and investigating child abuse crimes, I was like, yes, this is what I need to be doing. This, I mean, I say I enjoyed it, but nobody you don't enjoy it. But I mean,
Yeah.
but
It's
I
a
mean,
lot of
it
heavy
gave me
material. Yeah.
satisfaction. I'm giving back to my community because this is
Hmm.
what we're supposed to do, right?
Hmm.
You're supposed to give glory to God. This is how I was giving glory to God by advocating for these children.
Hmm.
So I enjoyed the aspect of here's my purpose. I understood my purpose. Here are these children that need something. Not every child has something. So
Hmm.
it's like here's this team that has come in. It was called a multidisciplinary team.
Okay.
So I was part of a team and we would go in and, you know, try to make things better. So
Yeah. And were there still times where even after you had understood and still struggled a little bit?
oh sure.
Yeah.
There were a few cases that, kind of rocked my world. There was a baby that was, I don't know, 6 months, 4 to 6 months in there. And we got the call that child was having difficulty breathing. We got there. Dad said he was laying on the sofa with the baby on his chest. Baby rolled off the chest, hit his head on a coffee table. So now we're at the hospital. And it's like a baby's, if you can think about your basic living room setup,
Hmm.
coffee table is going to be about here.
Yeah.
Here's your sofa.
About the same height. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not a big difference. And he said the baby fell down, hit his head on the coffee table, and that's why he had a lot of damage. So he had, swelling on the brain, he cracked his skull. There were some other things
From
going
just
on
a fall.
from what he said.
Yeah.
So it's like, no. So the
Mm.
baby was taken to Riley Hospital down in Indianapolis. And I went down there speaking with the doctor, and they were explaining the kind of injury he had. And they call it, and I'm going to sound really, really smart, it's called contre coup. which means that the
Contra
brain,
coup.
contra coup, so it was
That's fun to say.
bouncing. I know, no, I sound smart. So the brain essentially bounces back and forth, one side of the skull to the other. So it causes brain damage because there's nothing to.
Right, there's just like a little bit of filament in between
Right,
your
so there's
skull and
nothing
brain.
to
Yeah.
stop it. So the brain is going back and forth, and they likened it to being in a traffic accident and a baby going through the windshield. So the same impact that the baby had going through the windshield is the same impact that happened to this child. And we found out that the baby had been shaken by the dad. Baby was crying, he was frustrated, so he's shaking it. So when he's doing that, heads back and forth, brains going back and forth.
And it's 6 months old, so its neck muscles aren't also fully
Right.
able
So
to
while this
still
is going
grasp
on,
the.
there's whiplash going on, the brain's bouncing inside the skull, skull is being cracked. And what happened to that baby is that ended up, because of the back and forth movement in the brain, was blind now. I mean, this was pretty much immediate. It was blind, couldn't speak, lost the ability to speak or cry, and had to be fed with a feeding tube. So this baby was in this vegetative state.
At 6
Essentially, it
months.
was, yes, in the hospital, in the NICU, because this is what had happened to him, caused by his dad. So we eventually, when the dad told it, well, he just fell off my, chest and hit this. And now armed with this information, well, I mean, I questioned it anyway, because it's like, that was like how fast is this baby falling? So anyway,
Yeah.
so we found out through the doctors and everything. And then when we questioned him,
Yeah.
he finally admitted that, yeah, wouldn't stop crying, and I shook him. So that whole case kind of rocked my world, and I was like, I don't understand why this has happened. I don't understand about this child's life. He's got no life. He's not going to eat on his own, breathe, walk, talk, none of this. After he left the NICU, he was placed in the Children's Hospital, Peyton Manning Children's Hospital, and he was going to be placed in some kind of foster care. And I visited him from time to time because I was kind of worried about him. And seeing that's something you can't do in police work, it's just like getting emotionally attached to victims, because it really messes with you. So I learned that. I mean, you can be absorbed, but boundaries.
You can be present, but yeah, setting up boundaries.
No boundary.
Right?
I had no boundaries. So I would go and visit this baby, and I was, crushed, and I visited him. And there was a woman in there one day when I went to visit, and she was singing to him. And I said, well, who are you? Because I want to know who's in the room with my kid.
Yeah.
Not my kid, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like, who is this? And why are you in the room with my kid? And she told me her name, and she said, well, I'm the foster parent. I was like, okay. I said, how are you being a foster parent to this child who's going to require 24-hour care? I said, how are you able to do this? And she said, well, I think that God wanted angels to be here on earth, and this baby needs an angel. So of course, now I'm bawling because she's told me this story.
It did kind of change your perspective a little bit.
Yeah, but I thought, okay, so God has placed this woman in this child's life because she's the one he needs.
Yeah.
And so I would go to her house every once in a while, and she lived in northern Indiana, and I would drive just to see how he was doing. And he was growing and everything, but still blind, deaf, had a feeding tube. So his quality of life still wasn't what you would want for a child, but
Do you still keep in touch?
we have not.
No? Okay. So I guess kind of somewhat staying on the topic of like some of the heavy stuff that you've dealt with, did that ever, I guess my question is really just, did any of that ever affect you to a point where it was hard to bring that home? And then raising me and my brother, did that mentally kind of mess with you a little bit and whatnot as a parent?
Well, sure, and we try not to bring it home, but honestly, we all do. Every last one of us brings it home because we see horrible stuff
Yeah.
and you take it home. And maybe the way you take it home is now you're very stoic and you're flatline, you're not showing emotion. So now you're not present, you're not engaged with your children, and they know. Your spouse knows. Something's gone, something's happened at work. Why are they not laughing or doing anything?
Yeah.
So all of that creates work-related trauma and it ends up in the brain. And so you try not to show it at work or at home, but it's there anyway. I mean, it manifested itself in me many times when you and your brother were younger. And like for instance, was looking for swim lessons for both of you and was calling around trying to find out different policies, procedures, these different places that offered swimming. And this one young man I talked to was like, yeah, this is great. And if you're in a hurry, just drop your kids off. We'll change them into their swimsuits. And I was like,
Nope.
hold the phone.
Nope.
No, no. And it
Nope.
was because of the job I did. And he could have been a very genuine, very nice young man.
Yeah.
But once I heard that, I was like, nope, we're not going there.
Nope.
That's not happening. So where families bring their kids in during the holidays are here, you know, they're coming. They bring their children to see Santa Claus. I was right there because all I'm thinking is he's a pedophile. And my kids want to sit on his lap. And so all kinds of anxiety. So I was like right there. So when you guys were with Santa, I was like right there. And I thought, go ahead and do something in front of me, pal.
Yeah.
Those are my kids.
This is my kids.
No,
Yeah.
no, these will
The
be bad.
lioness was ready to
Oh.
jump.
She was right there waiting. Boy Scouts.
Really.
You guys were in Boy Scouts for a while. And your troop leader, he was a big guy, and you know, so be you, but wear clothes that fit, dude. And the buttons gaped, his clothes were dirty.
Yeah.
And it's like, wear a shirt that fits, wash it. So he's got food stains on it. The buttons are gaping, and I'm thinking, if this guy, and his hair was oily, and I'm thinking, you're supposed to be taking care of these boys, and you're not taking care of yourself. So yeah, I'm being judgmental, but it's like,
You
you're
kind
not
of have
taking
to
care of
be.
yourself, and that's my kid
Yeah.
that you're in charge of. So I was at all the Boy Scout meetings,
Yeah. Okay.
and I sat in the back watching because I thought, dude, you need to
Yeah.
look sharp. You're supposed to be a Boy Scout,
We're
right?
supposed
So
to
you
teach boys how to be men. You
be
know.
men, you're being
Yeah.
sharp. Be sharp. This
Yeah.
is not sharp.
Yeah.
So you had a helicopter mom. Sorry. Not sorry.
No, yeah, not sorry at the same time. I can tell. No, I joke around with friends a lot, especially nowadays when people want to get to know me and they're like, "Well, so what did your parents do?" Like, "Well, both of my parents were cops." "Oh, what was that like?" I had to be interrogated anytime I ever wanted to go somewhere, ever. "Well, who you going to be with? How long are you going to be there? How long are you going to be staying with those friends? Who are they? How do you know them?" It's like, I'll tell you anything you want to know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I killed him. So bringing that home, then what would you say was your biggest fear? I guess as both, like a parent and as a cop.
Of bringing it home?
You know, bringing it home or even just at work. Like I know like a lot of officers will say like they don't want to hear shots fired or officer down on the radio.
No, nobody wants to hear that.
So what would be, I guess, like your biggest fear that you had that you didn't necessarily want to, but you knew that you had to have it in the back of your mind every day whenever you went to work?
Well, every day we went to work, we knew we could die anytime, at any given moment. You hear of officers being ambushed, traffic stops, domestics. It can happen anytime.
Did that affect you and how you looked at me and my brother every day? Like if
Well,
you
sure,
were to
I
go
was
into,
overprotective.
well, no, I mean like you personally, like if you knew like I could die today because of the nature of my job, were you ever worried or afraid of what would happen to us?
Well, yes and no. I had somebody in line. It was in my will that was going to take care of you, and I knew you guys would be in good hands.
Mm-hmm.
But so is that part I was not worried about. I knew you'd be taken care of. But
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I mean, it's give you guys a hug and a kiss before you get on the school bus, and it's like, okay, am I going to get to do this tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to come home?
Yeah.
So the point was when we went to work that we want to make sure everybody goes home tonight, everybody's safe, everybody goes home in one piece.
Yeah. What was, I guess, the most challenging aspect of all of that, really?
Um, finding a balance,
Mm-hmm.
finding a balance. So self-care became important because you see so much tragedy. You see a lot of bad things that happen. You see a lot of evil people. A lot of good people out there. But when do they call us? Well, something evil is happening, right? Something
Mm-hmm.
bad is happening.
Right.
So we have to go in and sort it out and figure out what's going on. If there's somebody evil who's done something bad, do we have enough to arrest them? So all that kind of stuff. So, so it's a challenge, finding a balance, seeing evil every single day, and knowing that there are wonderful people out there, lovely people who care. So finding a balance and not walking into a room and looking and scoping, going, all right, what's going on here? Who's
Yeah.
bad? Who could do me harm? So, I mean, to this day, when I go anywhere, I like to know where the exits are. So if something hits the fan, I know where I need to go
Mm-hmm.
or where people can come in. So, I mean, just stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. What was there ever one case in particular that, I guess, that you can share some details about, not all of them, obviously, but is there one case in particular that the person got away and you just knew, just in your gut and in your heart, that that person is 100% guilty of the crime that they committed?
Oh, sure. I had a baby who was unconscious and had the same kind of issue in the head. There were 4 caretakers, though: mom, dad,
Brain damage?
grandparents. Yes, brain
Okay.
damage.
Okay.
And so we knew it had to be one of these 4 people.
Mm-hmm.
Interviewed all 4. I was satisfied mom didn't do it. I was satisfied grandma didn't do it, but I wasn't sure about dad and grandpa. Had them do a polygraph. It was inconclusive on the dad. Dad was kind of the one I was pretty much sure had done it. Polygraph inconclusive. Can't use it in court anyway.
Can't use a polygraph in court?
No.
Really?
So,
Why is that? I don't mean to ask another question, but like, why can't you use a polygraph in court?
can't use it in court because it's a way to, you have the right to not, you come into courtroom, you're innocent until proven guilty, right?
Right, yeah.
So if you fail a polygraph, it gives the jury the impression that they are guilty, and we can't do that.
Can
So,
you at least state that they failed the polygraph
No.
during the hearing? Really?
Can't talk about polygraphs. We just use it as a tool to help narrow things down. So using it as a tool, 2 people, but I'm thinking, this is dad. Dad did it. His behavior, everything else. So thinking dad.
Did your peers kind of agree with you on that as well? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I figured it was dad. But couldn't use polygraph, can't use it in a probable cause affidavit. So all I've got is circumstantial. That's not good enough.
Yeah.
So I have a baby, and the baby eventually died, passed away. So all I have is, baby with serious physical injuries. I've got dad who's giving me inconsistent statements as to what happened. So that's why I'm thinking it's dad. I felt it in my gut. It's dad, but I couldn't put the 2 pieces together, so nothing happened, and that's frustrating.
So nowhere in the circumstantial evidence there was anything that was actually 100%
No.
proof. Well, you can still take circumstantial evidence to court, though, right?
Depends what it is. I mean, if, say there's a burglary and somebody, so you have a suspect, but they're not admitting to anything, you don't have anything on a camera, but you can use your cell phone, pinpoint, yes, he was in the neighborhood, circumstantial.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in the neighborhood. Why were you in the neighborhood?
Right.
Okay. So that kind of thing. So we can use some of that in a courtroom.
And then that's really when it does become dependent on the jury to hear all that
The
evidence.
jury and a good defense attorney is going to, because that's
Well,
what they're
just
paid to
because he
do.
was in this area.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're going to try to put doubt in the juror's mind. That's why he's there or she's there, to put doubt in the jury's mind.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, beyond a reasonable doubt. What would a reasonable man or woman think when they hear it?
Mm-hmm.
So
I want to talk about, and me personally, I take a little bit of pride in telling people this story.
I'm afraid what you're going to
Just
say.
because you're my mom. Just because you're my mom, I take pride in like telling people the story and being like, yeah, that's my mom. That's what she did. And I only tell people, I guess, just the Cliff Notes version. But 2018, you won Detective of the Year for an amazing case. And we're not going to say anybody's names, but I do want you to kind of walk me through that case a little bit and just kind of share how that also, I guess, again, tying it all back here, how that affected you and I guess your sense of purpose, really.
It was a case that came to fruition because there was a boy who had run away. Parents had called him in as a runaway. Our officers found him.
Where?
And it was raining, so they found him soaking wet. He had a stolen backpack with him, and inside the backpack was some food. So they took him to the police department. I went and talked to him. He was 14 years old, and he was probably this tall. And he had this stolen backpack. It was full of food because his parents were starving him to death. So he's at Kroger, and the management knew and had seen him in there before.
So they had seen him before.
They'd seen him before.
Did they like tell him like never come back or something? Or?
They ignored it.
They ignored. Okay.
Because he was so visibly malnourished, so they knew. So as a kid, so I mean, his food was like, Pop-Tarts, so like garbage food.
Yeah.
But he was a kid.
But
so,
I mean, whenever you're that malnourished, anything is really just nourishment at that point.
As a kid, what do you want? A Pop-Tart, right?
Yeah.
So he had stolen a bunch of food. So I talked to him about all of that, and he talked about being hungry. I'd asked officers to say, hey, run to McDonald's, get this kid some food. So they'd gone to McDonald's, got him some food. And so during the course of our conversation, he was telling me how his parents did not feed him. His parents ended up showing up at the police department because they realized we had him. And while I was talking to him, I made a decision. This kid's not going home with these people.
Oh, so you made the decision right then and there.
Well, in talking to him and just visibly.
Yeah.
He's 14 years old. He should have been several inches taller.
Did he tell you that his parents were starving him, or was it like we have to wrap around this conversation to get to that point?
Well, we talked, and during the course of the conversation, he was talking about the food. Well, see if his backpack full of food. Tell me about that. And so he was talking about how there's no food in the house. A lot of it was locked up.
So it wasn't like a direct, my parents are starving me.
No.
It was enough evidence to you in your brain from what he was saying.
He had enough.
Yeah.
He ran away. This is not the first time he ran away. He'd run away before. He was returned home. He ran away this time. And after I'm looking at him and thinking, this kid's 14. I thought he was 9 because that's how little he was. And I asked one of our crime scene people to take pictures of him. I asked him if he'd mind taking off his shirt, so he took off his shirt. I mean, he's skeletal. So it was horrible. So the officers went and brought him some McDonald's. And for as neglected as this child was, he's very respectful, very polite. Never had any kind of an attitude, which you would think would come with that, just being an angry young man. But he didn't display any of that. He was very respectful, very polite. He was just a nice kid. And so we're talking, he's talking about all the stuff going on at home. I'd heard his parents were there. I left him to go talk to his mom. They told me about the dad. The dad he had 5 siblings, so a brother and 4 sisters. He was also starving the other brother, which we didn't know at the moment.
So there's 6 kids total, 2
kids
boys,
total,
4
4
girls, and the 2 boys are being starved.
They're being starved. And like I said, we didn't know the other boy was being starved at the moment. So one of the officers was like, Dad wants you out here. And I said, I'm not coming out there right now. I'm talking to this boy. So Dad left. Mom showed up. And Mom was not leaving until she talked to me. So I went and saw her, left the boy, and went and saw her. And she said, well, I need to take him home. And I said, well, he's not going home right now. And she said, well, he's a thief. I said, he stole food. So he didn't walk into Walmart and try to walk out with a flat screen TV, or an Xbox. He stole food. And she said, well, we have food at home. He eats nourishing meals. And I was like, I don't think so.
Yeah?
So she automatically hated me.
Yeah.
So she came in yelling and screaming, was like yelling and screaming and, calling me names. I'm thinking, well, we're done because I don't get paid enough to listen to that. So I said, we'll be in touch. So she's mad and, he's the son of Satan and whatever. And I was like, we're done. We're done.
Really? So she wasn't just bad-mouthing you, she was bad-mouthing him.
Oh, everything and everybody. Didn't like the police department, nothing. And, and you people never straighten him out. So blaming us for her failure to parent. So she's like, you guys never do anything. We call and nothing ever happens. I'm like, we're not doing this right now.
But the 4 daughters weren't being starved, though. It
No.
was just the boys?
Just the boys.
So was she showing, I guess, like favoritism to the girls?
Of course. Of course.
Gotcha.
So she leaves unsatisfied with anything I had to say, but I didn't care. And so one of the Department of Child Service workers got there, and I said, this kid's a mess. And so her supervisor went to the apartment to talk to the parents. She thought the parents were very appropriate. She said, well, these are great parents. This is what they're saying. He's a handful and a behavior problem. But she wasn't there looking at this boy.
She was only just hearing what the parents had to say. Yeah.
And the parents have had police called on them before, so they knew what to say. So
they've had the police, they've had these conversations before, so they've been well rehearsed.
Right, so they know what to say, they know what we're looking for. So the supervisor's like, well, we have to return him home. And I said, I am not sending this kid home. This is not happening.
Yeah.
So she was insistent, but again, she wasn't there. She was only getting half of it. Obviously, we're only getting one half of it too, right?
Right.
So somewhere in the middle is the truth. But we're seeing this starving, he was skeletal. So this is what we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like, well, my supervisor says we have to take him home. I said, I'm not comfortable doing that. This is not happening. So I said, you know what, let's take him to the hospital. So we took him down to Riley Hospital, had him checked out.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, this child weighed 62 pounds.
At 14?
At 14. He should weigh 50 pounds more.
Yeah, at least 90 or 100 pounds.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's not anywhere near it. They were doing other blood work and everything, and they're like, no, he's not going. He's staying here. All the electrolytes, all that stuff. Didn't have any of that. So blood work, fail. Urine test, fail. Any other testing they had done, x-rays, fail. So we're like, he's not going home. So I went to speak with the parents. So I had called him in, actually, called him in. This is what we're talking about. Well, where is he? And I said, well, he's not coming home. He's at the hospital. Oh, so while he's having a vacation at the hospital, yelling, I was like, I don't think he's not on vacation. I don't think he's having a good time.
Yeah, that wording just
So,
kind
well,
of
you
irritated
guys all
me.
believe him. He's a child of Satan. He's a horrible kid. He steals.
Child of
He stole
Satan.
food. He stole food. And so the hospital was keeping him there.
Yeah.
So because he was there, we didn't know what was going on with the other children. We got search warrants to take all the kids to the hospital to be checked out. They kept the other boy because he was in dire straits, not as dire as the older brother, but he was in dire straits too. It's like, this is terrible.
Mm.
So we interviewed all of the children and got a search warrant, went to the home. And so we did the search warrant. While we were doing the search warrant, I was speaking with the parents. And, she was nasty. She was just nasty.
Where was Dad in the middle of all this?
He just sat there. So Mom's obviously in charge.
Oh, so he just has no care in the world.
Well, he wasn't caring for his kids.
Yeah.
And she was ruling the roost. And if that works for some people, whatever. But in this particular aspect,
Yeah.
she was the puppeteer. So whatever she said, he parroted back to us. So she was obviously in control. She did not like these two boys. She was starving them. She argued, yes, we have healthy meals. This is what I feed these boys. But it's like, this is what you're telling me you're serving and providing for dinner. But looks are not deceiving. It's like, this child is malnourished.
Yeah.
I got a whole bunch of doctors saying malnourished, and they're holding on to him.
Mm-hmm.
That he stayed until the hospital until a foster family was selected for him.
Mm-hmm.
And so Mom was, police don't do, they don't help, you guys aren't doing anything. He's on vacation, having a good time. You're all believing him. You guys are worthless.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever. So it can't be everything for everybody. So we seized what we needed to seize from the home, and I would go to the hospital. Again, here I am, breaking boundaries. But I liked this boy. He was such a sweet kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to see him at the hospital a few times, just see how he was doing, and we talked. We kind of bonded a little bit. Since he was in a special part of the hospital, he had to have clearance to go, but the hospital staff knew who I was, knew I was there, so I was okay to go through. And then he told me that he was paired with a foster family, and so I was very worried about this.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, well, who's he going to end up with? Some foster parents are in it for the money.
Yeah.
That's what they want. Some foster families are wonderful, wonderful, wonderful families, giving children another chance. So I thought, which one is he getting? So I was worried. And so I prayed and prayed and prayed about it. And I thought, what has happened to this young boy? Lord, I hope he's with the right family that will love him and encourage him and teach him how to be a man, all this kind of good stuff. And I was worried, again, just very prayerful. And then I went into church one morning. It was kind of earlier than usual. And I walk into church, and I see this boy with his back to me, sitting in the very front row. Hair was wild. And I thought, well, he kind of looks like my kid. And I thought, no, that's not my kid. My kid wouldn't be here. I'm just fixated on my kid, so everybody must look like my kid.
Yeah, it's your mind playing.
Right. So I'm thinking it's not my kid.
Yeah.
So we're in church, and I'm just fixated now. I have to see what this kid looks like.
Yeah.
And so the boy turns his head, and I'm thinking, that's my kid. That is my kid. So I got up. Pastor was standing in front, and he must have noticed that I recognized. So he was coming up to say something.
This was in the middle of the sermon? Or?
No, I was in church before anything started.
Oh, okay.
So I'm looking at this boy, I was like, that's my kid. So I got up. I'm making a beeline. Pastor sees that I've put two and two together. He's coming up, and I was like, dude, no, I want to see this kid. So I went up to the kid, and he looks at me, and he's like, well, Nancy. And I was like, what are you doing here? And he said, well, my foster family is your pastor.
Yeah.
So I have a friend who likes to call that a God incident, not coincidence, it's a God incident. So here I was praying and worrying that this boy was not going to be placed with the right family
Yeah.
because that's what I wanted desperately for him. And he was there in church, my church, and I'm thinking, my brain is like going, what? This isn't possible.
Yeah. It's
And
that.
it was him, and he gave me a hug, and I gave him a hug. So I got to see him every Sunday for quite a while.
It was that spiritual comprehension that you just can't comprehend.
Right. And so after a month when he's in foster care, I saw him again, and he'd gained several pounds. He'd sprouted in height, and
Wow.
he was healthy. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I didn't try to force myself on him. I didn't want him to be embarrassed, because I was like, "Ooh," all the time. So boundaries.
Yeah.
So it's like he's got boundaries, I got boundaries. So, but he would come up to me and say, Nancy, I'm glad to see you. So after I saw him that initial time, I would just wait and let him come to me if he wanted. I didn't want to force myself into
Sure.
anything. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was powerful.
Wow. Yeah. Do you still kind of keep up with him a little bit, or?
I have him for a few years. He went to college.
Okay.
And he's graduated. So he's graduated maybe 3 years ago. So I haven't really.
Mm-hmm.
We were on social media together, but
Yeah.
So
Wow. Do you ever think about the fact that like now he's in college, now he's graduated, now he's in the real world, like I mean, you have to give yourself some kind of credit though, right? Like I mean, obviously all the praise and all the glory goes to God about it, but you were the vessel in that, like.
I was the vessel for God. It wasn't because of me. It could have been anybody. And like I said, it's a team. It's a multidisciplinary team. So it's child welfare, it's the prosecutor, it's police. So we all work together as a team. So yes, the team got them together. So there's satisfaction knowing that all the puzzle pieces came together and we got to do what we aimed to do. Mom and dad went to court. They went to court separately. He went to court in Hamilton County. She played a lot of games and got her change of venue in Tipton. And she was erratic. So her trial was maybe 6 months after dad's. So but everything came together. And like I said, it was a team. He had the foster family, so also part of the team. So now he's got a family who care about him. So
Yeah.
So yes, there's satisfaction when the pieces come together and you can serve God's purpose here. And now this child is better off because God's work.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. It's just so satisfying to see that kind of all happen to take place like that. It really is. Wow. I'm just speechless because it's just remarkable how all those things kind of just like looking back at it, like you can see like how it all flows. You can fill in the lines or fill in the dots, whatever the expression is. But yeah, wow.
Yeah, and there were a lot of cops that cared about this kid.
Oh yeah.
So they're all in the hallway when I'm interviewing them. And they're all out in the hallway going, is he all right?
Is he all right?
Is he okay? Can we get him something else?
Yeah.
So we had breakfast and somebody said, well, I'll get him lunch. And all right. So everybody wanted to be a part of it.
So would you say that because, so I guess this is really a little bit more of a hard knocking question a little bit too. And obviously the point of the show is to change people's perceptions. So given that story, and given also your prior experiences as well, how would you hope to change people's perceptions of police officers today? Because how I can at least best acquaint it to like myself personally is having worked in HVAC, and I am not taking away anything that police have done, but working in HVAC, what I've noticed is whenever people encounter one bad service tech, because maybe he tried to make a sales pitch or he didn't know what he was doing, so he made the machine work, whatever. It gets into some people's minds that now because they had that one bad experience, well, now all HVAC techs are bad. And so I see that a lot now in our society where if there's one bad apple amongst cops, or if one cop misjudges a situation, not necessarily saying he wasn't a bad cop, but just maybe just misjudged something or just made a wrong choice, just whatever, all the different elements. Now all cops are bad. And thankfully not everybody believes that all cops are bad, but for the negative outlook that police officers do get, what would you, I guess, say to the viewers or the listeners right now that would best change their perception? Because obviously you're a human being, you're a mother.
Fabulous mother.
Yeah. Sorry, a wonderful, loving mother.
I guess I would say that there's some bad cops out there. There are. Not making light of anything heinous that has happened in anyone's situation. There are bad cops out there. But I had the honor of working with a bunch of really, truly good human beings who cared about people. And so that I was fortunate to be able to do that and share experiences. We were supportive of each other, cared about our community. So I would say if anybody has questions or doubts, talk to us. There are festivals throughout the year. Just go up and start talking to them. We are human. We have lives and interests and hobbies outside of our
Okay, well, so how
jobs.
should somebody approach a police officer if they are interested in being like, hey, officer, like how should they
What's wrong with
approach?
just saying, hey, officer, I just have a few questions?
Well, I'm saying just because officers are on their guard. Is there a way you should approach or?
No, just go up and just
Okay.
be open and say, hey, I have a few questions.
Okay.
Questions about police work, or
Yeah.
they'll talk to you.
Yeah.
I mean, don't come up in the middle of a traffic stop while they're doing it, but if you see them walking around the state fair, or you see them at these 4th of July festivals, just come up and talk to them and say, hey, just a couple questions.
Yeah.
We'll give you answers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's how you do communication. Communication. This is how we grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
We do not grow in isolation. We grow in communication. You have to have a connection.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to someone. Talk to an officer. Talk to a firefighter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've had some pretty heavy material. So now I want to change the tone a little bit here, because having grown up with you and hearing stories from other officers and your peers, you are the queen of sarcasm. So I guess what are some times that you have had fun with members of the community as a cop, or even just amongst your peers? Because I know that from stories that you've also shared, like you love to pull pranks, you love to
Right.
be smart with some people.
Well, it's how
Whenever
we
you
blow off
were,
a little steam. We,
yeah,
play pranks on each other. We tease each other.
yeah,
Part of the community, right? That's the connection.
it's that camaraderie again.
Right.
Yeah,
It's like we always used to have a running joke is like, don't tell another officer where your weakness is because we will exploit it in a loving way. I mean, we didn't do it maliciously.
Yeah, yeah,
So we, tease each other. Yes, at their expense, but, paybacks, right?
yeah.
So it goes back and forth. So we did that. Community, there were some great people out there and who would come up if I was working a booth, they'd come up and we just start laughing and joking about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were some people that came up that were kind of nasty and said, well, there's one woman in particular who'd come up and she said, well, I'm glad you're all wearing these body cameras now because now we can all tell when you're screwing up. And I was like, well, thank you very much. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I'm just sitting here. I don't know why.
Yeah. I'm just minding my own business.
Minding my own business. Thanks a lot. So anyway, so I just said, well, thanks for your input. And she walked off.
Yeah.
Because, it's not worth having discussions like that. But so, yeah, there are some times when you're doing stuff out with kids
Yeah.
and they see you
Mm-hmm.
like at parades and kids would come up or a little girl would come up and say, because see a woman in a uniform is like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that girls could be police. I said, you can be whatever you want to be. And so we would talk and
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of a lightheartedness also at the
Oh,
office and whatnot. Okay.
Sure.
So you're retired now,
hmm
and I remember in your last few years as a police officer,
hmm
you were super dedicated to this new calling of making sure that police officers had the um, proper resources
hmm
to dealing with some mental health issues,
hmm
um, because there's only so much training that you can have going into, like, hey, you're going to see some stuff as a cop, but nothing can actually really prepare you for, like, you just saw it. So was there stuff that you saw that kind of messed with you mentally that you've kind of been able to use um, in your new line of work now, where you are working with um, police officers to help them with their mental health?
hmm So shortly before I retired, I became involved with an organization called First Responder Support Network,
Hmm.
and they provide residential treatment programs for first responders, so police, fire, dispatchers, EMS, who've had
So the
some.
whole grand scope of everything.
Mhm.
Okay.
So anyone who's had work-related trauma or has PTSD,
Okay.
a first responder, any one of those four um, are 250% more likely to experience some kind of trauma. The average citizen, maybe
Is it similar to post-traumatic stress or?
post-traumatic stress is a post-traumatic stress injury. I'll explain that a little bit, but we're 250% more likely to experience some kind of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
The average person, between 6 to 10%, may experience some kind of trauma in their life.
Mm.
So obviously, so we're way up here, so we're very likely to experience that. And when you see a small child who has died and the families come to the hospital and their grief is palpable and you're feeling it and you're touched by it, and now their lives are forever changed because this child has died, there are no words.
Yeah.
There are no words when this parent is trying to comprehend that this is what's left of their child. Child's not coming home.
No parent should have to bury their
No,
child.
no
Yeah.
child. Right, no parent should have to experience that. So when you see that time and time again, and try not to be just so morose here or to paint too graphic a picture, but infants that have died, children who have died, people in an accident, people have been murdered. We've had people murdered in Carmel. Anyone who's injured, anyone who is suffering crime. So we're going there and we're dealing with it, but we're taking it home. Not at the moment. So in the moment, we open up the little box in our brain and we stuff it in there and push it away and say, well, I'll deal with it later.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is you go from one call to another, to another, to another, to another. So when you go to a call, what happens? You get adrenaline, you get cortisol, all these hormones flowing through your body. It takes 72 hours for the body to recover from any kind of trauma, whether it's vicarious trauma or something that
Really?
has happened to us
So
individually.
even vicariously going through, like you were just saying, seeing the parents and their grief at the hospital, it still takes you 72 hours?
It takes 72 hours for the body to recover. But when you're a first responder, you don't have that luxury. You have
Yeah,
call
because you
after
gotta
call
go
after call
to
after call.
yeah.
So all of this cortisol, all the adrenaline is flowing through the body. It's got nowhere to go. So what happens is you get compassion fatigue, and
Compassion fatigue.
that's because that compassion fatigue is that you see so much sadness, grief, trauma. It's overwhelming and it can make you tired, literally tired.
Sort
So
of
you,
similar, somewhat, sort of to like survivor's guilt.
a little different. So I mean, so you see a lot of sadness, and we're we're human beings, so we have emotions. So it's like this horrible thing has happened to this family, and so we feel horrible for them. Their lives are changed.
Yeah.
So that's horrifying. And like robots, so we have emotion, right? So something bad has happened. It's like, oh my goodness, this family's changed. Now you go to another scene. Oh my gosh, this family. So you see it, so it's overwhelming, and that's so you plug it in that and put it in that little box. It's like I don't want to deal with it, and when you don't deal with it, and a lot of officers don't because there's stigma attached to it because we're not supposed to be weak, and so a lot of first responders think they're weak if we say, well, we need help, we can't deal with this is too much, we've dealt with it for too long, we can't deal with it. Well, now we're weak, can't be weak, can't be vulnerable, so we have to be strong. So you've got you fighting against that. So as a general public think, well, I've got all this trauma, and now I've got this mental trauma that I'm dealing with, and now they're thinking, well, are you well? Can you take care of? So now I think we're walking around crazy because we're dealing with all this trauma, and I can tell you that post-traumatic stress is an actual brain injury. If you look at a side-by-side comparison of somebody who's got post-traumatic stress, use my hand, so like the front temporal lobe, there's not a lot of activity. The activity stops. So all this thinking, so front temporal lobe, that's all your rational and emotion, it starts working. And then in the middle, everything else. So the brains are not, the sides of the brain are not communicating with each other.
So your cognition really is just kind of just overwhelmed.
It is overwhelmed. And you can see it on a brain. It's just an actual injury. A healthy brain versus one that's got a post-traumatic stress injury. So they're different.
Is there a way, like microscopically, like different proteins that are just not there anymore, or just like sections of the brain that are just...
The sections of the brains just stop firing because they're shutting down.
Really?
Because they want to protect.
Okay.
So what happens is this brain is shutting down. It's taking in a lot of information, and so now it's shutting down. So now we've got first responders have a lot of anxiety and depression. Now they can't sleep because they get nightmares thinking about what they saw, because again, we bring it home. So that's where the injury comes in the brain, because all this is going on, it's not being dealt with. And so I became a part of this organization, and we do provide residential treatment to first responders. Again, police, fire, dispatch, EMS, and we have them come in. It's peer-driven, so there are a lot of other first responders there.
And they kind of share their testimony a little bit.
We share our experiences with the clients who come in. The clients who come in think they're crazy because they can't sleep. They have angry outbursts. They're punching walls, whatever, and they think they're the only ones doing that, but they're not. So they're with a bunch of people who say, yep, you know what, I've been doing this. I understand. I get you. I hear you. I see you.
It helps them understand
that
they're not alone.
They're not alone. There are clinicians who are there. They do a group therapy sessions with the clients almost every day throughout the week, so that they can get the help and start clearing out the stuff that's making them unwell. So they're not fixed. It's only 6 days. So they're not fixed, but when they leave, they have the tools that they need. It's like, here's something that may help you.
Right, you're providing those opportunities for them.
And when they walk out, they've got a list of people now they can reach out to anytime and say, hey, I'm having a bad day, so we can talk them through it.
And does that ever weigh heavy on you? Because, I mean, you're not Jesus, none of us are. So whenever we have other people's burdens placed upon us, we can help, but we're not Jesus about it. We can't be somebody's savior. So is there times where those burdens just get heavy on you?
Well, sure.
Yeah.
It's all part of that compassion fatigue, because you take it on.
Yeah.
The family that's grieving, well, I'm taking that on because that has impacted me emotionally. Or the other bad stuff. You go into somebody's house, there's a homicide, and it's like, oh my gosh, now you know. And it's brutal to see dead bodies. It's brutal, time and time and time again. So it's brutal. Now you know how this has impacted family. If they had children, there's somebody's mom, there's somebody's dad, there's somebody's brother or sister, there's somebody's son or daughter. And so it's like, and now you got to tell somebody that they're dead.
How do you overcome that compassion fatigue to still be, or to still make yourself available to listen to them without feeling exhausted.
Well, you don't deal at the moment. If they need to grieve, they need to talk to someone. You have to.
Yeah, you have
got
to
to
be
be
open.
there. You
Yeah.
got to be there. When you go home, maybe you take a half an hour when you get home and say, here's my half hour.
Yeah.
I'm going to reset.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go home. I'm just going to process. Maybe I'll take a shower. Maybe I'll do something else. Maybe I'm going to take a little walk before I walk in that door at the house. So you just need time to reset.
Mm.
So you have to make the time to do it. You have to purposely, intentionally do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to wrap it up here and ask you one last little question. Do you miss it?
Police work?
Yeah.
I miss the people I worked with.
You miss the people you work with. Okay.
I don't miss talking to children about their victimization. I don't miss any of that.
Hmm.
But I miss the people.
Why is
I
that?
worked with good people.
Why is that?
Why is what?
Why don't you miss the victimization and talking to the children?
Because it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot.
So have you felt that you've done your duty?
I feel like I have. And I knew I was done. So that family that was starving their children, that was my last child abuse case before I switched over and did wellness.
Mm-hmm.
And it was time. I knew I was ready. It's like, bucket's full, can't carry another drop.
Mm-hmm. So it was that case specifically where you knew at that point that your time now is limited.
Yeah,
and
so I can't do this anymore.
And did it feel, or was it hard for you, I guess what I'm asking, was it hard for you to pass the torch on to somebody else who's
Well,
now filling
sure.
your position?
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you take ownership, right?
Yeah.
It's like, these are my kids. You better take care of my kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, they were competent guys and gals that came on and did it. And I knew they were in good hands, but so I missed that aspect of it, of being involved and taking care of my kids. So
yeah. And I remember I recorded your last call over the radio. What was that like?
bittersweet.
Bittersweet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like, this is it. I'm done.
Yeah.
So it's hard to just, 35 years, that's what I did. That's who I was. So
Yeah.
it's bittersweet.
At that point in your life, had you been a cop more than you had been, and not a cop?
Mm-hmm.
Really? Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the majority of your life was spent doing all that. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, can you give the viewers any information as far as the first responders? What was it? First responders
Support Network.
Support Network. What information can anybody that's struggling and probably needs that network? Where can they go to find that?
They are online, www.frsn.org.
.org. Okay. And is there any parting words that you have for anybody that is struggling, or for any fellow police officers that are still in the game, maybe?
For those that are still in the game, just take care of yourself. It's okay to cry. It's okay to not be okay. But yeah, before it starts becoming too much, talk to somebody about it. Take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself. Great. I'm so happy I was able to convince you to come on today.
You're welcome.
If you like today's episode, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Check us out on Instagram, Perception Podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Casey Zellers. Thank you all for watching. Hope to see you in the next episode. Later.